Awesome. Yeah. So first off, thank you guys for being here. There's obviously 1,000 places you could be, so I really appreciate you taking some time at the MagMod booth. I really just want to walk through how I use Flash on a wedding day. A lot of the time, Flash can become used for portraits. And so I started getting these portraits on my website, and I'd get couples that they were really, really into my portraits, and it was really fun. But then I'd have these couples that got married in these super weird locations. They'd be like, hey, I want that portrait on your website. I'm like, that's great. You're getting ready in a bathroom. Like, I have to figure out how to make this work. And so I really started to explore what my options were for that. And it was something that kind of came to me over time with a lot of practice, a lot of training from great photographers like Trevor himself, and then picking up some of the right tools. I was actually pretty opposed to MagMod when it first came out. I'm reminded of this often. I thought it was just another gimmicky kind of thing. And I was very outspoken about that. And then I was at a wedding, and one of my second shooters was like, hey, you got to try this stuff out. I was like, yeah, whatever. And let me see the grid. Like, let me take a look at that. And MagMod made something click with me with off-camera lighting that other Flash tools had not. It gave me a complete control over my Flash in a bunch of different varieties of situations, and it was something that I definitely struggled with early on. So I want to jump in right here and start with the fun stuff, making something out of nothing. And it's easy to look at a picture like this. You see it online and see like, oh, you've got this super dramatic portrait without really thinking too much about what goes in behind it. So this picture, I showed up to do this girl's bridal session. And as we showed up to do her bridal session, I walked into the place and I found out that they are doing a complete renovation of the entire building of her venue the day and the time that we are set to be there. I'm like, great. So there's just nonsense happening everywhere. And so I come in and this bride like immediately is freaking out. She's starting to get all nervous. Everything is kind of like overwhelming for her. I'm like, listen, we'll make some great images. We'll work around it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure something out. So this picture looks like this, which is great. But if I go forward, this is what that actually looks like. And so you can see the ladders from the scaffolding on the other side. And had my light over here, and you notice the fireplace is not lit. So as you're going through this, thinking about a few different things that are happening here. So I'm using a light on the side. So this is just two grids on a flash aimed directly towards her. And you can see that light right here. And then right behind her, I have an orange gel in a MagMod sphere in the fireplace sitting to light this up. This is also a Bernizer. So this is stitched, I want to say it's like 30 or 40 images. And the reason for that is because I wanted the reflection to stay as compressed as it is in here. So I wanted to shoot it with an 85mm lens. You could have taken this with a 24 or with a 58. I did take this with a 24. The reflection just doesn't look as nice as one that's kind of stacked together. And if you haven't played around with it, Lightroom makes stitching images super easy now. You grab a bunch of them, stitch them. It took me 5 minutes, I think, to get this whole thing kind of together. So this is kind of one of those examples where you come into a situation and obviously things have changed. You're not ready for exactly what you're seeing. And then you're able to come in and make something completely dynamic. As soon as the bride saw even just the portrait of her, she was blown away. She thinks of me higher as a professional, and that's really what makes the difference to my clients. And so again, this comes from here. And again, the two grids right over here and the MagMod sphere with an orange gel behind. The tricks to do this, this is something that I always try to remember. I don't bring the same kit to every wedding, or to every shoot rather. I have two kind of different bags of lights. I've got some Lytra LEDs that I use. I've got some flashes. I've got everything. I try to mix things up. So I try not to just get reliant on the same things. So the first thing when I walk into a situation like this is I'm just looking, what do I have with me? If I have a camera, like what lenses do I have? What tools do I have? Do I have any of those like weird copper pipes that people are carrying around? And they're like, I've got those in my bag. Whatever I can use to kind of jazz things up a little bit. The next thing you want to pay very, very close attention to, specifically as you're looking at flash, what are the limitations of your scene? If you're coming in and I'm going to be in a super dark place, I have a lot more control than if I'm out in the sun. So if I'm in full-blown sun, all right, now I have to make choices around just my lighting conditions. The next thing that is big on this, I will talk to my clients while I am thinking about what is going to be done, or I'll tell them, hey, you just hang out here for a few minutes. I just want to test some things out. If you involve your clients in your planning process too early, they're not going to trust you as well as when you come in and you bring them in and you say, hey, we're going to set up this awesome shot. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to go set it up, and then I'm going to bring you in. If you have an assistant or something like that, test it on them first. Your clients don't want to sit there while you're fumbling with light. It's something that if you go click one, hang on, click, they start to doubt you more and more. You want to come across as the professional that's giving them exactly what they need on their wedding day without them having to worry about it. And this is a big thing. Don't rely on one tool. I use Brennizers, I use off-camera lighting, I use high-speed sync, I use natural light. Your clients want a range of things, and they don't want their pictures to look like every other picture on your website. They want it to look consistent, but they don't want just the same thing over and over and over again. Challenge yourself as an artist. Leave lenses in your car, whatever that looks like. Mix things around. And this is one thing I'll actually show. I believe I have an example in here. Set up stuff at home. I have irritated my wife by commandeering our entire living room with like 4 off-camera lights, being like, all right, how can I make my living room look good, or my dining room, whatever that is. So practice this stuff at home and then learn from those failures. I have a lot of images that will never see the light of day anywhere online because they suck. And they're supposed to suck while you're learning. And that's just the way you're supposed to go through things. And so a few more examples of this. Before we go, practice on this. Everything you do, every shoot, you should be walking away with notes or something of what you should do better next time. Here we've got this image. And again, this is a bride. She wanted a bridal getting ready portrait. She wanted a nice shot of her in this room. And what this room looks like is this. And so she's like, hey, I'd really love a portrait of me. And I was like, all right, great, let's go outside. She's like, no, my husband's out there. I was like, okay, awesome. And so like, you can like how tight this room was. Like I'm literally storing my lenses on the right-hand side. You can see the MagMod gels, my lenses, probably my phone over there as well. And so like, this is all the space we had to work with. But I've got the Mag Beam with a mask in it, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. And then 2 grids on the front. So if you look, you can see I've got the mask, which gives the texture right here of these 3 lines. And then the teal gel to kind of pave the door a little bit. And then that was their wedding colors as well. With gels, my general approach is, let's try this. Sometimes you can try something, it'll look great. Sometimes you try something that looks pretty terrible. Play around until you kind of have a feeling for, this is an orange gel situation, or whatever that looks like. But the door had such a good texture to it, I wanted to kind of give it a little bit more and kind of really make it highlighted. And so bringing in that blue gel right there. And then the 2 grids on the front to make sure, if you're using the Mag Mask and the Mag Beam, very careful. The biggest mistake I see a lot of people make is if they do like that for the background and another light for the front, it's very easy to have the lights touch. And if you're going over, you lose the pattern and you lose the color. So you have to make sure to keep your lights very separate. That's why I use the grids. And for most of my flashes, almost all of my flash work, there is going to be at least a grid or the Mag Beam on almost at all times. Very rarely will I use other modifiers because if I've got the grids on, light is only going where I want it to, and it's not going anywhere I don't want it to. And that's really important to me. So again, making the most out of this here. This aimed right here to give it that texture, and then the other one to front light it. This image, a couple found me on my website, wanted an awesome portrait, and the portraits that they had shown me ahead of time were these portraits that had taken like an hour and a half hiking up this awesome place, and then they're like, all right, great. They gave me like 10 minutes on their wedding day. 10 minutes, and they also got married at an airport, which we could not go anywhere without a security escort. So I found a concrete wall right behind their venue. I used that same lined mag mask and an amber gel, and this is where we were standing. The dumpsters are right around the corner, and I'm sorry about this, but trust me. And I bring them along and I show them this, and so we get set and I bring the couple out. And again, I had my assistant out, we came out, my second shooter continued to shoot. My assistant and I went outside, set up lights, and tested this probably about 5 minutes to set up the shot. Once we got the lights and everything set, came back, again, that beam right there, and then the front light with the grids. If I'm using the beam as a background tool with the masks, almost always I will have 2 grids on the front just to make sure that light is kind of limited down. Right here. So this one is a little bit different, and I use the beam, but I also put an orange gel on this. I hate the cold, like passionately hate the cold. And I have a thing where I don't do winter weddings because I hate the cold. I'm a baby outside. I just don't like it. This couple decided to get married in January in Philadelphia, and I had done his brother's wedding, his cousin's wedding, and 2 other family members. So he was pretty insistent that I shoot his wedding. So when I showed up to shoot his wedding, I was freezing, and they wanted some portraits outside, and I gave them some. It wound up snowing later on that night. So I gave them some with snow, I gave them diversity, but I wanted to give a little bit of extra boost. So this, I wanted something that felt a little bit warmer for the two of them. So what I did is I put a blue gel in a mag beam and I aimed it right towards them. So out of camera, this is what that would look like. You notice that I've got a very harsh blue color on them. And then that's what the sky would normally look like. A lot of this stuff you're thinking in layers. So you're thinking about your background first, then your foreground, and then your flash. You have two separate exposures happening. And so I fixed my background to make it orange, and then to make it so the couple isn't incredibly orange, I put a blue gel right on top of them. Whoop. Got a little carried away there. I shouldn't be trusted with these things. All right, so blue gel on top of them, and that's why the rest of the scene can look as orange as it does. All right. This one right here, again, using that the little mag mask. And again, right here, we're talking, right, just a white wall outside of their place. So for night portraits, a lot of times couples will be like, oh, I want a night portrait, and there isn't anything. That's what MagMod does best, is just making something completely out of nothing. This shot of a wonderful gift my wife got me, which I was very excited about. So it's a distill your own whiskey kit. I was pretty happy. I wound up actually getting a pretty good contract with this company as well. But this is practice. Like, I use the snoot for this right here so that I'm not hitting the light. And this is where it actually looks like. So when I mentioned I do practice, this right here, this is what this looks like. This is my kitchen, complete with a Minnie Mouse. And you'll notice it is like taped on there because 2-year-olds have no mercy. And so I was like, all right, I got to work around all this stuff. And so turning that into that. So pretty cool to be able to take. And this, again, I am using a sphere with an orange gel in it right behind to kind of spread that light out a little bit and just give it that kind of circular shape to match everything right here. This one, so no magic going on here except maybe. The groom gave me no warning that this was happening. Like 3 or 4 times I talked to him, I was like, hey, like, what's going on? And he's like, nothing. And he had this like look in his eye, I was like, great. And so his wife is a teacher, and she just had this like, don't, like, look at me, I will kill you, look, like, and he's like, yeah, it's fine. So he disappears for a little bit, and she's like visibly nervous. I turn around, and sure enough, from the far end of the reception hall, he is coming in his full fireman's garb. And I'm like, I want to get something great out of this. Like, I really want to do something fun with this. So he's at the other end of the reception hall walking in to do the garter. And so this is all happening. And so I'm like right by my camera bag. I will keep the gels in the gel holder. It's something I believe I learned from Trevor, to keep these in here. So I have red, blue, CTO, and a half blue gel always in a holder. And so I literally grabbed it, threw it, and I threw it across the dance floor. Like, just, it's like, maybe we'll get it. Like, and so I threw the gel across, and then I have an assistant holding the other light. And so the assistant's job is to follow the bride's nose. That is their only job all day long. If they get it wrong, the nice thing about MagMod gear is it's soft enough to throw at people as well to get their attention. So I will occasionally whip a grid or two just to be like, hey. But so he's following her nose right there, and getting this shot is literally like one click, and this is the one that came out because the red gel was right behind where he was, and the other ones I had to take them back. Technically speaking, if I was doing this again, the one thing I would probably change is I would put a grid on the flash to make sure that I could shoot a few more angles. When you're not using a grid and you've got all that light coming directly at your lens, it's very easy to wash out your frame or get very, very hot spots that you then have to worry about. So if I was planning for it, I might have set it up a little bit differently, but getting it like this was pretty happy. Moments are something that matter a lot to me. A few years ago, I was at a convention. I was at a Fearless conference, and I was very big into portraits at that time. I had won a few awards, and I was getting very, very excited about what I could do with a camera. And 2 fantastic photographers, Matt and Tara Thieling, got up, and they said, remember when you're shooting, it is their wedding, not your photo shoot. And it was something that seems pretty simple to hear, but the truth is, it's their wedding. It's a big deal to them. And that was something that I hadn't really thought about all that much. I think a lot of the photography industry can be pretty egocentric, and we start to do a lot of these things. And so I got very obsessed with what I could do with a camera. Moments on wedding days matter more to your client than anything you can create, and I will fight anyone on this. it means so much to them. And so those are the most important things of the day. And using off-camera flash to do that can be very tricky. And so one of the things that you can do is, and this is for business, for everything, this is the best piece of advice I got. Success happens when preparation meets opportunity. If you are ready for it, and when a moment happens, you'll get it. If you have not practiced, it will not go. So I want to be very clear, like start wide when you begin. When you start thinking about reception lighting or things like that, use off-camera flash to start wide and then get narrower over time as your skill improves. Nobody's going to be great first time out of the box. Right here, I use an assistant for almost every single wedding. Yes, it's an expense. My images are better. Simple as that. Very, very important. Communicate with your couple. If you're using off-camera flash, there's a very good chance that you're shooting in a zone setting. So you have lights set up to light a certain zone of the area or something like that. If your couple doesn't know, like, hey, this is where I'm currently set up. If you're moving, let me know. They're going to just go off in some weird direction. A lot of moments happen when you're not ready for them. So make sure to kind of communicate with your couple. Hey, if you're going somewhere, just give me a heads up. Let me know. I also carry an emergency LED in my pocket that I will follow them around with if I have to. This is important. This is something that I still struggle with. Don't burst. When you go to a moment, you want to shoot through it, but you want to shoot with purpose. It is very easy to just go like this and just go, oh, they're hugging, and just slam the tar out of your thing. Like, wait for it and shoot through the entire moment. And then lastly, practice. There's no replacement. This stuff takes a lot of time. I figured out, I was talking to somebody, we were talking about some of the images and some of the awards and things that had popped up. And he said something, he's like, I really wish I could shoot like that. And I was like, how long have you been shooting? We talked. I've taken over 3 million photographs. You are not seeing the first 2 million anytime, right? There is a certain learning curve that is very difficult, and don't fault yourself for taking your time to get through that learning curve. This is a moment that is happening. It looks like a posed portrait. It's not. We're at their wedding. They started doing fireworks completely unannounced. There was a baseball stadium down the road that had won a home game and started going. I didn't even know the stadium was there. And so the fireworks started going off and everyone ran outside. I could obviously have gone and been like, all right, guys, turn, look at me, pose, stop. I would have killed that moment for them. And again, it's their wedding day, not my photo shoot. And so I had to make a big adjustment. So what I did is I grabbed a grid, and I put that flash right in front of them. I went behind them, and I left them alone. I didn't bother them. I didn't tell them what to do. I just let them enjoy their moment. And the best part is because the flashes, the fireworks, and everything like that, they didn't even know I was there taking pictures. They were just sitting there watching the fireworks on their wedding day on the tail end of things. And it's one of the most important things to them. And they've told me afterwards, like, they didn't know I was taking these photos, but they're some of their favorite photos from the day because it was so unexpected to them. And that's being ready to do that. I've got a pretty mobile light stand and one flash and a grid on it, and I will bring that around anywhere. That's kind of my go-to if I don't have that LED. This right here, the dip at the end of the dance. I don't care how many weddings I've shot, anytime I get the shot of the dip and I'm in the right location, it is the most amazing thing ever. This was because I was ready for it. I've learned enough to watch where they're going, how they're spinning, trying to understand the rest of the song, how long they're gonna go. And not every couple's gonna do this, but when they do and you get it right in your light, it's a pretty good deal. This was the hardest ceremony I've ever photographed in my life. It is pitch black in here. This is actually 5 lights, I believe, or 4 lights, I believe, total. There's 2 behind, 2 in front, and then there's 1 behind the sheet as well. This was complicated. And the bride told me, she's like, hey, we're getting married indoors. Do you think you'll be good for that? I was like, all right. And we talked through the process. This right here, easily the trickiest ceremony I've shot, but getting it right for them is a big deal. Doing portraits. I saved the boring stuff for last. Big notes about doing portraits. First off, communicate with your couple again. This is going to be something that you cannot do too much of. As you're talking to them, let them know what you're planning to do, how things are going to go. Managing client expectations. So as Trevor mentioned, I'm a big systems guy. Managing client expectations is probably the biggest part of your job. You know what's possible, you know what isn't. You are the professional in the situation. You have to convey that across. So as you go, make sure to do that. When you're doing portraits outside or at night, make sure that you're paying attention to when a rim light is required, a light from behind. If you have dark colors on dark backgrounds, it becomes you can do it on purpose, but it's very easy to lose people. So pay attention, there will be times when you're doing something where you need multiple lights. And I'll talk on that a little bit more in a second. On that, prioritize your ambient light first. When you first walk into a scene, before you think about flash in the slightest, get your ambient light down. So if you're looking at natural light or you're trying to figure out what to do with your flash, start by getting your in-camera exposure for your background first. Once you have that, then start adding in flashes. I am a big believer in moving back to front when it comes to flashes. So I start with my ambient as far away from my camera, then I start with any backlight that I need, if I need it, and then once I have my backlight set, then I add in my front light to light the couple. Those times, and it'll depend on the situation. Sometimes one flash will be fine, sometimes two. Take it slow. You can start with one flash and do a ton with it, as long as you're careful. When you're posing with off-camera flash for a portrait, be very careful. One shadow the wrong way is going to kill the entire shot. Again, coming back to timing for emotion, big deal to make sure that as you're shooting, you're timing out those shots. And lastly, again, practice. Practice this stuff every chance you get. I annoy my kids on holidays and I take their pictures with 3 off-camera flashes and my wife hates me for it, and it's okay. We get through, but I have to make sure that I'm constantly working on bettering myself. This right here, this is a so it's an intense portrait. This is possibly my favorite picture I've ever taken, and I'll go into why. My wife used to go to Rangeley, Maine, which is where this picture was taken, all the time as a kid. And when we first got married, our early years of marriage were pretty rough. We had to figure a lot out. We got married young, and we had a lot to work through. We wound up going on vacation up to Rangeley, Maine, where she invited me into her family, and we really got a chance to spend time with her family, and this was after us being married. We had gone through a lot. This was the start of things really getting better after I had made a lot of mistakes in my business, and I wanted to remember that. I wanted to kind of document that and be included in that. And so this is actually a selfie. This is taken with the Nikon wireless app on a D750. I've got a light behind over here, aiming in, and I have a light right in front of us, aimed right towards us. So this is us sitting, like you can see I've got a 13-second exposure, f2 and 1600. The first thing I did to take this shot is, again, I slowed down and I got my ambient first. So I got this looking the way it needs to. Once this was good, then I added in that front light, and I had my wife sit on the back for like at least 5 to 10 minutes, more than 10. She's much more than 10. While I dialed in that front light and made it perfect. And so then I added in the back. By the time I took this picture, she was visibly annoyed at me, but now it's forever and it's hanging in our living room. And there's something that's there. And so this is like, these are things like, even though it's a posed portrait, this definitely tells a story of some variety, but it tells a story to me, and finding what's important to your clients is a big deal. Some clients, the best picture you could take of them might be their cake, their dress, some napkin that their grandmother gave them. Like, using that, and whatever that's important to them, do the best possible job with that shot. You're not gonna get everything perfect, but like some of the things like this, where this scene tells the full story to me, and that's a big deal. This right here, this couple was the easiest couple I think I've ever worked with. They liked each other a ton. They were hilarious, and they were awkward gigglers, which are my favorite type of people. They're like, I'm so uncomfortable, so I can't stop smiling. I'm like, this is the best. Like, you don't look mad or anything. So these guys were just head over heels in each other. And this is a pretty simple shot, all things considered. They're actually still on the dance floor. And this is something I talked about in a How I Shot It video, and I really recommend doing. I do couples portraits for nighttime stuff on the dance floor whenever possible. And the reason for that is because people's friends are usually drinking for a while at this point. They are obnoxious, and no one can contain their emotions. And so while the couple is sitting there trying to like be snuggly and cute, you've got people yelling all sorts of obscene things behind them. And it's great. And it prompts easy emotion that I don't have to intervene on. The other big reason to do couples portraits on the dance floor is that you're not pulling them out of their wedding day. They're still enjoying their wedding. They're still there. They're not off taking pictures somewhere. You're just snapping one on the edge of the dance floor. So it doesn't count against that, like how many times has my photographer pulled me out of the room situation. This one, double exposure, specifically right here, and double exposure on a Nikon, like the older Nikon. So like, I'm really proud of this because I was flying blind. So the fact that I don't have like 3 brides in here is amazing. Going in, and again, I just use a MagSphere for this, just right out of frame. The nice thing about the MagMod stuff is because it was set up for my reception lighting, all I had to do was swap from grid to sphere, turn it, aim it, and it was good to go. So very easy to switch between locations. This one, I believe tomorrow, Charmy Pena will be speaking over the Nikon booth, and absolutely go attend every talk she gives. I have learned so much from her. This was shooting with her, so I second shot with her. And she was running around doing stuff, and the couple was just sitting in the middle of the dance floor while she was getting rid of everything, getting everything out right, and they were just taking it in. So real quick, I just paused. I said, hey, can I just bug you two real quick? Just come over here and just cozy up next to each other. This is a single flash, just an orange gel behind the couple, and there's not a ton going on here. The flash is at a pretty low power. I didn't want to blow the whole thing out. I wanted it to just look like it was part of the scene. And so that's one of the things that I encourage people to do as you're photographing portraits. Don't be so obsessed with, I have to use flash and it has to look like it's flashed and I have to show off. This could just as easily have been an ambient shot. There was just not enough rim light where I just added just a touch of flash to just add to the scene. I want to make sure that this image reflects my couple's, what my couple are feeling in that moment. So really easy to do. And this one, yeah, is one frame. I don't even think I took a second shot on this one. And then this right here. So this is a pretty interesting angle once you figure it out. How am I doing? Got it. And so on this one, I just had one grid aiming towards the flash, or aiming towards them. But again, because they've got the black hair right there, I put them in a bright spot so that I didn't need a second light. So I used that bright blue sky as my backlight. Yeah, so my favorite, you'll notice a theme here. This is actually the 1/7200 shot I have. A lot of the time I'm shooting with a 24 or an 85, and I really like 24. The Nikon one in particular doesn't distort on the edges, and so you can get like real fun with that. Mag beam right here. And then this one is just one MagMod grid right behind the couple. Cool. And that is it. Let me, nope. Yep, there. Here's how you find me. I do own myphotographerlovestacos.com. So if you need a way to remember it, that is the easiest way. There is a little menu that you can click to go to the For Photographers page. Otherwise, you can just go directly to daveshay.com/traction. I would love to hang out and answer any questions, or if there's anything I can do. I will be over in this kind of corner area. And yeah, say hey, let me know how I can help, and let kind of the MagMod team do the rest. But this stuff is absolutely invaluable to my thing. And
you're invaluable.
This guy, when are you're speaking before me tomorrow too. Check out everything he does. Most of my off-camera lighting stuff, I still think of Ninja every time he's got some awesome stuff.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate you, man.